All right, match number 5 with Affinity. We are on the play. Is our hand keepable? That is the question. Slayer Husk plus Springleaf Drum means we have a mana source. Frogmite means we have another early creature. Thoughtcast means we get to refill our hand. Star helps us if the drum doesn't. Fling is pretty awful right now, but if we draw into Atog, it could be good. I guess I will keep. Next big question is Husk or Springleaf Drum first. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be tapping the Germ for mana, so I'm going to play the Drum first to not expose the Germ token to removal. It's unlikely our opponent goes Swamp plus Disfigure or something like that, but just in case. Island Pass, okay. We drew a Mirror Enforcer, which is not particularly welcome. We get to play Husk and Star and Frogmite this turn, though. Which puts us to 5 artifacts, which means next turn we can cast Mirror Enforcer with a land and a creature tap. Darksteel Citadel. Prophetic Prism. Well, that's interesting. I have no clue what our opponent is playing. I feel like I should know, but I don't. Affinity doesn't play basic islands, but the Darksteel Citadel indicates something interesting, some sort of blue Metalcraft deck. Alright, so I could Thoughtcast right now, or I could play Mirror Enforcer. If I play Thoughtcast, I might be able to play Mirror Enforcer as well. So should I go for the greedy play, or should I go for the conservative play and just play Mirror Enforcer? I think I'm going to go for the conservative play. I think we're far enough ahead here that the conservative play is fine. I'm going to wait to crack this star until I know what color mana I need from it. I know I have a mana of any color I want each turn from Springleaf Drum, but I don't want to get greedy and crack the star. Keeping stars around for as long as possible also helps when you draw additional Mirror Enforcers. Our opponent has Vault of Whispers, so they're definitely some sort of artifact deck. The question is why they're playing a basic island over a seat of the Synod. Maybe they already are playing the full 4 seats and they needed additional lands. Okay, so our Mirror Enforcer is getting blasted. So this looks like a typical Affinity list. They are playing black lands, Vault of Whispers for Disciple of the Vault, probably. I really do not prefer Disciple of the Vault builds, but it can sometimes be a little bit more explosive than non-Disciple lists. Alright, free Frogmite. What next? I can play a Somber Hoverguard or a Thoughtcast. I think I want to get my beat down on and play a Somber Hoverguard, and I'll leave up Galvanic Blast. Attack for 3. So the reason you play Disciple of the Vault, it's a 1-mana 1/1, then that when an artifact you control is put into the graveyard, target opponent loses 1 life. And the reason is you get to double up with Atog. So you have Disciple of the Vault, you play Atog, and then every time you sack something, instead of just giving +2/+2 to the Atog, you also make your opponent lose a life. So it's a little bit easier to go off with Atog, maybe even if you don't have Fling in hand. Our opponent casts Thoughtcast, their own Mirror Enforcer, which we will be blasting, or maybe not. So we have a couple choices here. We could blast a Mirror Enforcer, we could blast the face and just attack in the air. I think I'm a fan of just blasting the face and attacking in the air. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. If I drew another Galvanic Blast, I'd probably want to remove the 2 Enforcers, but there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. Alright, I will play my Thoughtcast. And there's another Thoughtcast. So I suppose I will cycle this for blue. Although actually, I should be playing Somber Hoverguard here, so I'm not going to do this. I'm going to play Somber Hoverguard. If my plan is to attack in the air, I should be putting as many attackers in the air as I can. Alrighty. And the reason I used Frogmite for Springleaf Drum instead of the Germ is because I plan to chump block this turn. And I'd rather chump block with a Germ than with a Frogmite. So we're in a very commanding position in this game. We have 6 power in the air and a blast in hand, and our opponent is at 8. And I don't believe any affinity list can gain life main deck. If they have Disciple and another Disciple and a Fling and an Atog, I don't think they have mana for all that, but there is conceivably a world where our opponent could kill us this turn. So we'll see what they do. There's an Atog. They have 8 creatures, or they have 8 artifacts right now, but they've just tapped themselves out of Fling mana, so I don't think we need to worry about that. And unless our opponent has Dispel for our Galvanic Blast, I think they should be dead on board. Our opponent can't actually attack right now. I suppose they can attack with 1, yeah. Because then they can block the things on the ground. If they attack with 2 things, then they have to take an additional damage from the germ, which they probably don't want to do. Alright, we are just going to take this damage. I don't think it really matters either way whether we chump block. Alright, we're going to start by attacking in the air. Make sure we get in for 6. And then we shall Galvanic Blast our opponent out of the game. We're going to start with Thought Casting, just in case our opponent has some sort of counterspell, and they want to use it on this instead. Alright. Here we go. Question mark? Yes, perfect. Okay, so we have the mirror match, and our opponent's apparently playing a Disciple of the Vault version. So in the mirror match, we definitely want the 4 Ancient Grudges. They're ridiculously powerful. Additionally, we want the 1 Hydroblast, so we can take down an Atog with it, or counter an Atog spell, or also Galvanic Blast. There's a small argument for Pyroblast, since it can take down Somber Hoverguard, and also Thoughtcast. However, our opponent does not appear to be on the Somber Hoverguard version. There's a couple different ways you can build Affinity. Some of them play Somber Hoverguard. Some of them play the 1 and a white 3/3 flyer with Metalcraft. Some of them play Disciple of the Vault. And this list appears to be the Disciple of the Vault version. Thoughtcast is very strong, but I'm not going to bring in Pyroblast just for Thoughtcast. It's too likely to be dead in our hand. What we're going to take out is 1 Springleaf Drum and 4 Frogmite, because our Frogmites get outclassed by our opponent's 4/4s. And we're going to submit this deck. Okay, game 2. So we have a Seat of the Synod, a Springleaf Drum, and a Husk. So we have some mana. We have our Atog, which is pretty important. I think we're going to keep this. If our opponent has an Ancient Grudge and they get to hit our land, then we're probably going to lose, unless we just draw a runner land. But I think this hand is good enough to keep, even though it doesn't have an Ancient Grudge of its own. We'll lead off with the Flare Husk. Our opponent is probably not going to Galvanic Blast our Germ. They play a Prophetic Prism. Somber Hoverguard. So I've thought a little bit about it. I'm going to play Springleaf Drum, and then I'm going to play Thoughtcast here for 1 mana. Try to dig to some more stuff to do. I have 1 mana up, but that's not enough to do anything, so I'll pass the turn and see what our opponent does to us. I guess I can attack here. Next turn, we got a pretty explosive turn. We probably can play both these Mirror Enforcers. Yeah, I believe we should be able to if our opponent doesn't disrupt us. Our opponent has a Thoughtcast of their own, but they had to play 2 mana for theirs. And it looks like they're missing a land drop this turn, which is quite good for us. Ooh, Ancient Grudge. So here, Darksteel Citadel, which I don't run in my list, actually comes in handy. Usually, Ancient Grudge, if you draw it early in the mirror match, you take out your opponent's lands, but we can't actually do that here. So now we have the question, do we want to take out... We could play this Furnace. Well, we're definitely going to play the Furnace. We could play Ancient Grudge, tap the Springleaf Drum and the Germ for grain, and also take out the Prism, and take our opponent off of specific colors of mana, so we could color screw them in addition to mana screw them since they missed a land drop. However, what I'm going to do here is, yeah, this costs 2 right now. So if I cast Prophetic Prism first, that makes it only cost 1, and then the next one should cost 0. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start by putting our opponent under pressure. And I realized I could tap this germ to deal 4 to our opponent, but actually we're so constrained on mana, we might want to do that. No, we can tap one of our other creatures. I'm not thinking clearly. So we're probably going to blast the face on our opponent's end step if they don't make a 4/4 of their own. And I'd rather play these two 4/4s first and then Ancient Grudge, flashback Ancient Grudge. And that'll really put our opponent out of the game. Additionally, if they make a land drop here and it's an artifact land, we might want to take it out. Alright, our opponent has an Atog. So we're going to start by Galvanic Blasting that, so we don't have to worry about it blocking and sacrificing anything and getting tricky. If we try to Ancient Grudge pre-combat next turn, they'll just sacrifice the stuff to the Atog, and we won't be able to attack with our Mirror Enforcers, which is why I did it this way. Alright, Somber Hoverguard. Somber Hoverguard. And then I'm going to Ancient Grudge Prophetic Prism. And I'm going to tap one of these creatures. Perfect. Then I get to bash for 9. So I valued putting the second Somber Hoverguard onto the table over flashing back the Ancient Grudge at this turn. And I don't think there's any getting out of this for our opponent. So we went 5-0 in a league again. Hooray. We did that before with Mono Black Control. This is the second time so far. We get a BFZ pack and Oath of the Gatewatch pack and 150 play points for our trouble. So about double the play points we used to enter. As you can see, Affinity is an explosively powerful deck, capable of winning very quickly. But while it is explosively powerful and aggressive, it also has very many interesting decisions, like on turn 2 and 3, how you're going to sequence your spells, how you're going to try to up your affinity count to play your creatures for as cheap as possible, whether you're going to spend mana advancing your board state or try to Galvanic Blast a blocker first. There's a lot of decisions to be made, even though the games take a lot less time. Affinity is similar to Elves in that they are both aggressive decks that, while they're very strong game 1, there are very strong hate cards against them when your opponent sideboards. So Ancient Grudge, Nature's Claim, Smash to Smithereens, Gleeful Sabotage, there's a lot of different things that can wreck you. And it's important in games 2 and 3 to either have Pyroblast or Hydroblast to counter the spells that matter, or just know what your opponent could possibly have and try to play around it as much as possible. For example, it was pretty risky of me to keep a 1-land hand against an Affinity player, an opposing Affinity player who could have Ancient Grudges. I deemed that the hand was ultimately good enough to go ahead and do that anyway, but it's something that I need to be aware of. If the hand is mediocre and it only has 1 land, so it's weak to Ancient Grudge, that might be a reason not to keep it and try to mulligan to a hand with more lands, so that if your opponent has Ancient Grudge starting your lands, you don't just automatically lose. While I don't like being so weak to very strong sideboard cards, I do still like this deck quite a bit. It's quite powerful, it's been around for quite a bit, and despite people devoting some sideboard slots to beat it, it still manages to be a major player. So it's definitely resilient. I hope you all enjoy the video. If you did enjoy it, please remember to like the video and subscribe to our channel so you can see all the new stuff coming out. If you want to reach out to me, I'm on Twitter at JakeStylesMTG, or you can drop a note in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.